I'm Dr. Frank Granito, Chief Scientist with the Institute for Digital Transformation. I want to welcome you to Digital Dialogue, where different industry experts discuss digital transformation topics and issues that are of concern to all businesses. Whether you are already a digital enterprise, or on your journey, or still trying to figure out what that all means, we know you'll find something here for you. Remember, as a LinkedIn Live session, this is your opportunity to interact with these experts. Post your comments and questions in chat for a full interactive experience. Welcome to Digital Dialogue.
Thank you, Frank. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to this week's Digital Dialogue. I am 𝒓𝒂𝒅𝒊𝒂𝒍, and today we're going to talk about inspiring transformation. I have some colleagues with me to help us kind of go through that process, so we'll introduce them in just a minute. For those of you that are online that know me, I'm looking forward to having you join in on the conversation. For those of you that don't, I am currently Chief Experience Officer at 𝒄𝒖𝒍𝒕𝒖𝒓𝒂𝒍, a managed services organization. I have a long time career as an IT exec, and just equally as long, a great passion around serving the customer and really providing an exemplary customer experience. But all of that doesn't work if we don't have our people along for the ride. So that's what we're going to really focus on today. How do we motivate our teams to really feel comfortable and successful as we navigate change? So again, to help me with that, I'd like to introduce my friends. I have Jeff Mason joining us.
Hello, how are you, Jessica?
Great, how are you?
Good, thank you so much for having me on.
Nice to see you. If you could give us a little quick intro on who you are.
Sure, absolutely. So a sales career, 35 years in sales training and executive leadership. And I've been watching the customer experience for over 30 years. So now I'm an experience economy consultant. 𝒓𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒍 is my company. And I'm really I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have a chat with you. You and I have great fun together. So this will be a good one. Also joining us is Linda McGuigan. And so let's have a look at Linda. Hey, great to see you.
How are you? Nice to see you again.
You too.
So I'm Linda McGuigan, and I've got a 25-year history of being a corporate executive in sales enablement and marketing. And the past 10 years or so, I've been advising and launching startups in the SaaS space. And I also sit on the board of a very cool nonprofit called The Chance in Life.
Well, that may come up in our conversation, so looking forward to that. And then finally, to round us out, we've got Sheri Horwitz. Sheri, hello, how are you?
Hello, Jessica. Hello, Jeff and Linda. I'm so excited to chat with you today. I am a IT executive. I spent my career in technology, and my last executive position was SVP of IT at a technology company. I'm currently an IT consultant, helping company transform. And I also have a company called My 101 to help professionals navigate their career. So please look for us on LinkedIn too. I am passionate about building teams and actually mentoring people. That is my passion. So I'm excited to be here and chat with everybody.
So I think we've got the right group of people to chat about this. For those of you joining us, I know it was mentioned already, but please put your comments or questions in the chat. We'd love to have interaction. This is live on purpose. We really mean this to be a conversation. This is not a presentation. This is a chat. So join us there. And then just a little bit of housekeeping. Although we're here to talk about people, we're going to dig a little bit on digital transformation, mostly to make sure we're all on the same page of what does digital transformation really mean. I would argue that it means all kinds of things to all different people in all different ways, but we'll talk about that real quick. And then we'll dig into the people part of this. And then I'm saving my favorite thing for the end, which is the speed round. So look for that at the very end. My goal is for us to be able to give all of you guys participating some ideas, tips, advice to help you as you try to kind of help teams motivate themselves through change. So with that, let's get started. as I said, I think we probably should define digital transformation. So since this is the Institute for Digital Transformation that is hosting this event, we'll probably be wise to talk about how we at the Institute sort of define things. So interestingly, digital transformation as a term, to me, doesn't fit at all what it really is. To me, digital transformation is really about organizational change, a way for an organization to reimagine their business, the way they operate, the way their people are structured, their purpose, all kinds of things. Technology, rather than being the front runner, is the enabler of the change. And one of the words that we've used at the Institute is that transformation is really a metamorphosis, more so than typical change management. So not iterative changes, but really reimagining, rethinking how you run your organization. So that's my version of it. It aligns closely with the Institute, clearly. But Jeff, I'm going to call on you, if you wouldn't mind. How does that resonate with you or not resonate? You can disagree with me, but love to hear what you think.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I think it does resonate. And I just think that there's anytime you're going through, a cultural transformation like this, I think the word culture, you have to look at it and make sure that, is there hypocrisy in the culture? In other words, are your, people executing the change, are those customer facing people, are they asked to behave in different ways than executive leadership or mid-level management does? And I think you have to make sure that everybody, is breathing that same cultural spirit, that mindset. And I think that's a healthy thing. I just a couple other things. I think it's essential that you get that customer facing component of your company, those people involved in, whatever change you're embarking on. Let them tell you their thoughts and ideas on it. Let them share their observations, because they're seeing, what the customer, how it could affect the customer in practical ways. And then I think we just really have to be conscientious of both the internal and external customers. They want to know what's in it for me. Let's make sure as leaders, we, spell it out to them. What's in it for a customer? What's in it for an associate? And why are they being asked to do this?
Yeah, I agree with you so much. I think the what's in it for me, we'll probably talk about that quite a bit this in this chat. But actually want to just tap you, Sheri, for a second before we go much further with that one. I know you, of all of us, are most recently a practitioner, although all of us have been there, but you've got the most close to the ground view of what that looks like. And so how have you found transformation kind of affecting the IT organization of today?
I think transformation has to be tied into the business goals of the company, and the business goals may change rapidly. It may change annually. So IT has to be tied into that. I think for an IT organization, it's very important to serve our customers, which is usually the whole company, but our external customers as well. And in terms of transformation, really make sure that we have the opinions of the people who will be doing the implementation, make sure they buy into the transformation, and also understand that transformation isn't always for the best technology. Because it's tied to business goals, it could be cost, it could be security. There's many reasons for transformation beyond just trying to get the best technology. Sometimes you can't have the best technology, and you have to get the team around that as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that one. So let's dig in on the people side. I know, obviously that's what we're here to talk about. All of us have been involved in transformation and digital transformations all over the place in the industry as a thing that we must be doing. But I hear, I don't hear as much as I think we should hear, that the whole cultural transformation, and Jeff, you touched on this right away, which I love, that there's a cultural transformation that has to happen alongside of the business organizational transformation, or what technologies are used to enable that. And I think on the people end of it, it gets forgotten, and it has an element of uncomfortableness. And Linda, I would love to hear from you specifically around the fact that how do you get people across an organization, and not just the leadership. I mean, that's just this one small piece, but really the wider organization, the people on the ground that are actually doing the work and are most affected, right? How do you create an environment or a culture where they feel trusting and safe as we go through these enormous kind of uncomfortable changes?
Yeah, great question. And the comments by Jeff and Sheri are so insightful. And when you think about it, you think about the statistics today around digital transformation and the success rates of digital transformation. It's rather alarming. It's difficult because it's change, and you've got two sides to this coin. You've got the people that are actually implementing the change, the technicians, the people the technical folks that are driving that change because they've been directed to, and then you've got your users and your clients, your internal organizations that need to adopt it. So, and that's all execution and adoption. It doesn't happen naturally. It's people driving both those sides of the coin. So it's so important to be able to, have your finger on the pulse and communicate often and frequently with both those sides of the coin to make sure that people are aligned, that they understand what their goals and objectives are, that they are motivated and inspired to do what's being asked of them. And as a good friend and mentor of mine, John Maxwell, who's an iconic leadership guy, he's written 88 books, he has another one coming out soon, always says, everything rises and falls on leadership. So when you think about motivating and inspiring, it comes from the top. It comes whether you're managing a group of leaders, whether you run a 9,000 person organization, you have a top 120 leaders that you're managing, or you're managing individual contributors. You have a responsibility as a leader to drive authentic leadership to those people and invest in their development. And there's different ways that you invest in development with leaders and with individual contributors. So it sounds simple, but it's not. It's all in the execution of it. And there's lots of creative ways that you can accomplish that.
Well, I'm going to share, as a kind of an example of what not to do related to leadership. And I had seen in this one organization that I was a part of where they put, these inspiring words on the wall. They were looking for us to change. And they had these words up on the wall. They were beautifully, placed artistically on the wall. But leadership, they were kind of their own clique. So they put these words up on the wall. We were supposed to follow this, but then the leaders were like in this own little box. It was only their world, and they were only communicating to the people that maybe they brought in or they thought were special. And then they kind of left everybody else over here, and we're all looking around like, wait a minute, you've got these inspiring words up there, but you're not living them. How can we possibly follow you if you're not trying to bring us in as a part of that conversation? I don't know. Maybe I just had a weird experience alone. Jeff, any?
Yeah, no, you're spot on, Jessica. And thanks for the, all the great comments, Sheri and Linda. Yeah, I mean, I worked for a company once that gave us all a book to read, and it was written by one of the former executives of the company. It was all about culture. And, here's where you have to really get real with your companies. In the break room, when you're watching all of us talk about this book, it was just astonishing to us that we had to read this and we were asked to follow these tenets when it was clear as, it was crystal clear that leadership beat to a different drum. And when you have that, that's why I mentioned that hypocrisy factor, just like the saying on the wall, you've got to be careful, folks. And, you got to make sure that, to get that good buy-in, to get that cornerstone set firmly on this transformation, you've got to make sure that everybody is towing the line the same way.
Sheri, any thoughts from you on that one? Leadership?
So many thoughts, actually. So I'll try to keep it brief. So there's a few things that Linda said that really resonated with me, and then Jeff followed up on them, which is leadership is, it's important to be a leader who says what they do. And I guess it's a common situation that was just mentioned. We've also had situations where we were told to read a book, and there was definitely some question as to whether or not everybody followed the tenets of that book. But that didn't mean the book wasn't good. And it didn't mean that we shouldn't try to also drive what that book was saying within our organization. But yes, saying and doing what you say, it's always been, it's very important as a leader to follow up on what you're saying and not just speak and put words on the wall. Secondly, Linda mentioned communication, which is, she said, communicate frequently and often with all of your stakeholders. And I cannot, that is so important, is to make sure that you communicate with all of your stakeholders everybody involved, people doing the implementation, people who are going to be receiving the implementation. It's important to state what the goals of whatever that transformation is outright and then measure against them. People don't want to know that you transformed and that it's over, it's done. That doesn't mean that it was successful. So it's important to measure whatever goal you were trying to reach and show the people, your stakeholders, that it was or wasn't successful, and be honest about it as well. If something was meant to transform and it didn't succeed, it's okay to be honest about it. But communication is important, right? Pull your people in, make sure everybody's moving to the same direction. And the only other thing I'd like to add is just make sure that you have leaders within the organization who believe in the project, right? Who are champions. I think that was the word I was looking for, right? Champions, to champion the project with you. You can't just be you. It has to be a lot of people and a few champions, and maybe also an idea that came from your own team, right? Your own team might say, hey, if we use this tool instead of that tool, then we're going to be much more efficient. And then you look into it and you implement it. So I also think like transformation ideas should come from the team as well. It shouldn't be just from the top down. It should be from the team, and it should align with the company's business objectives.
Absolutely. And that actually agree completely. I think it ties to something else that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is really kind of diving in on company purpose. Can you define what your company's purpose is? Is leadership in agreement as to what that is? And does the rest of the organization know what that purpose is, right? And that's not just, the things you sell. There's like a purpose behind, what you as an organization are there to do. And tying that to cultural change, in my view, is really important because that's your North Star, right? This is our purpose as a company. And now we want to make sure that we're really thinking about how we create and help support a culture. And one of you said this before, making sure everyone's successful in that transformation of the people and the culture, that it actually kind of ladders up to that purpose. Agree, disagree? I'll leave the floor open. Linda, Jeff, what do you think?
I totally agree. I mean, as one person rises in leadership in the organization, the entire organization can rise. So, it's teaming, it's culture, it's authenticity, it's Sheri, I think you're the one that said walk the talk, do what you say, or I'm not sure if Jeff, if you made that point. So it really and it's okay to it's fantastic if you've got a leader who can be vulnerable, who can say, look, we're making these changes, transformation, it's cost-based, cost-driven. Maybe everyone's not happy about that, but at the end of the day, it'll give us the functionality that we need to do our jobs, and we're asking you all to embrace this. In the end, there'll be other benefits from this. Be authentic. Not everything is great. There's ups and downs in life and in business. So I think being transparent, authentic, communicative with your people will pay incredible dividends.
Well, actually, Sheri, and nice to see you, Sheri. I'm glad you are on. I think what she's got posted up there sort of fits with what you were just saying. As a leader, are you supposed to know every little detail and pretend you're the hero or be the hero? Or is it okay to also share that perhaps some of the answers are unknown and we're all in this together? I don't know. What do you think, Jeff?
I totally agree. I think that and especially with the younger folks that are coming into the workforce, they like this, transparency. They like relatability. They like truth, and they don't want to hear some smokescreen. They don't want to hear, be told something that just, hey, do it because I said so. No, I think that there's, if you don't know and you don't have the answer as an employee, I would love to hear my leadership say, let me get back to you on that. I really want to try to fill in the blanks for you guys, because that shows me that leader cares about how I feel behind my keyboard or in that environment for the 8 hours, 10 hours I'm working each day. So I think it's absolutely a good thing.
You brought up, the upcoming generation. I think we should talk about that a little bit too. I know I've had these conversations with all of you guys in different kind of times, but I think that it's okay to recognize that not all of us think the same way. Not all of us have the same expectations, and not all of us have the same needs. So how do you help an organization, kind of get behind this culture of excitement around change when people have different perspectives, different levels of interest, different levels of what they need to be supported through this? I'll toss that one out there. Anybody want to have a thought?
I'll take it. So I think it's important when you're driving change to have people on that committee, let's say, or that project team that are diverse, right? It's important to have diversity on your project teams. So, and that could be anything in diversity, right? But you want to cover everything and make sure that you have people from different parts and times of their career, from different backgrounds in your project team, that will give some honesty also to your project team. There's give and take, but you also will get opinions of people across from different viewpoints. And I think it's really important that your project team have all of that diversity if possible. Pick your leaders from maybe somebody who's recently started a career to somebody who's been in the job for a while. And you might be surprised what you learn. Mm-hmm. I always enjoyed having the younger professionals on driving some of our teams, working with our teams, because there was fresh perspectives. And I always got some really great advice.
It's and I think with the up and coming generation too, and I think Jeff, you had said this, the communication, where they feel that they need with communication. I would also add transparency as much as possible. I see with them this desire, they've got a lot of questions. They actually want to do great things. Right. So I think we need to really appreciate them. They are our future leaders and we need to support them. So they've got lots of questions. We need to make sure that we find a way that enables them the communications that they need in order for them to do well and understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish and why. And as you said before, the what's in it for me. Do any of you guys have examples of where you've been able to do that or have a technique that you've used specifically to help in that scenario? So you've got individuals fresh in their career, really trying to help them look at things a little bit differently. How do you do that?
Well, I'll just jump in. I have something I call courtesy communication, and really it's sitting from my vantage point, imagining what their vantage point is wanting to know, and then constructing some courtesy communication that's voluntary, that kind of updates them or fills them in, gives them some information that they didn't have earlier. And no one asked for it, but I know that the wheels are spinning and they're probably thinking about it. So why not just as a leader say, hey, I'm going to give you something that will make you more equipped, more knowledgeable, connect you more to this project.
Sheri, any thoughts from your end? What did you do with your IT organization in particular? I'm sure you had, young professionals coming in, and I know you went through some big transformations.
I think for us, it was just important to, like I said, involve multi-levels of the organization in any transformation and ensure that decisions were not completely top down, but pull in everybody into the decision and let them understand, why we're making the decision that we're making, and solicit feedback and give, and also listen to the feedback and make sure people know that you're hearing the feedback. In other words, don't just solicit feedback and do nothing with it. You have to respond to it, which is really important. But I think that, I also think it sounds very cliche, but having an open door policy, especially for your young professionals, they need to know that there's a manager that they could go to ask questions, to be mentored, and to have that open door. And if you're a global company, it's okay if that door is a virtual door, for sure. But run activities that help pull in everybody across, your diverse population. So for us, it might have been creating a women's organization, a lean-in organization, and that ended up going global. But also maybe have been running an innovation event as well, and having cross generations on that committee to help drive it. Again, you just get fresh ideas. So I think it's important to, as a leader, to reach out to all levels of your organization. The idea of a skip level meeting is no joke. Like, you have to schedule that in your calendar. You need to put those skip levels in. They need to be regular. And your managers also need to do skip levels. And you have to ensure that the message is consistent all the way through the organization. So it's definitely one tenet that I always had, was having skip levels, have my team have skip levels. And then also, again, back to the feedback. You're going to get feedback at a skip level. You need to bring it to the attention of your entire team, right? Your team that's helping you drive the organization. So those are a few things that I could think of top of mind.
You know, we've had a couple of people in our chat kind of with a similar theme, and it's really all around skills and diversity kind of popping up in a few places. I would argue both are valid and important. One of the things that intrigued me is some of the personality tests that you take, which, you know, I have to admit, I'm going to roll my eyes every time someone asks me to take it, but every single time I come up the same, and I'm guessing you guys do too. But I think as a leader, when you look at that, it's a place to really dig into what can you do as that person's kind of mentor to really help find the places where they're going to be great at stuff and help push them in that direction, versus focusing so much on stuff that this is not in their wheelhouse. They don't like doing it. It makes them uncomfortable. It's just a stumbling block. Why focus on that when you can focus on the good stuff? I don't know, Linda, you're smiling.
Yeah, no, it's so, I mean, like, you know, if you're at a level 3 as far as singing, it doesn't make sense to try to be a level 10 singer if you don't have that gift.
No gift whatsoever.
7 or 8 and become a 10. And I think those tests are good in the sense of self-awareness for the young leaders. It's very hard. I found it in my career, it's very hard to teach self-awareness. If somebody really is not self-aware and it's part of their personality makeup, tests like that can really, you know, nudge them along in terms of really realizing how they are perceived by other people. And I think self-awareness is a big skill required as you increase your responsibilities, understanding how you come across to people, understanding the best way to relate to other personality types. I think, you know, that can be very beneficial, those tests in that regard. But another thing I wanted to add to Sheri's comments, practical way to increase communication is town halls, mini town halls with a CEO or a senior leader that opens it up to virtual. I've been on some really amazing virtual town halls with participation around the world. And you really open up the chat. And what I found is the younger folks are really not afraid to ask the tough questions. And it gets really interesting because their perspective is so different. Like, they haven't managed through an 2008 financial crisis or a 9/11 situation or recent, you know, challenges in the market that were significant. So it's dealing with all those complicated reactions to things can be challenging. So again, more communication, the better, and honest, authentic answers as much as you can.
So Jeff, I want to kind of come back to you on the, you know, customer side of things, tying back into an organization that's going through change, right? We've got an organization that changes, you know, they're doing a digital transformation. We're saying you need to really think about your cultural transformation alongside of that. And we're talking all about that today. But how does the customer experience sort of marry into that whole kind of transformative unit?
Yeah, well, and you know, Linda said something a second ago, Jessica, and on, you know, how are you being perceived by others? This self-awareness, and it's the same thing on the customer end. You know, we're now embedded in this what we call the experience economy, and it's so emotionally charged. It's not always what we do or what we make or the goods we provide. It's how we go about doing it. So the big piece there is, you know, whenever we go through this cultural transformation and we you know, we're doing something new and fresh, you've got to really become the customer and understand how they could be perceiving this, what's going through their mind. And, you know, as architects of this internally, you have to understand how it's spilling out to the external end users. And you've got to really understand that a lot of their perceptions are going to be based on maybe not fact, but it's how they're perceiving that you're carrying out this transfer. Nobody wants to hear that, oh, starting next Monday, you as a customer now have to do 7 things differently than you did this week. They want to be taken through it carefully and methodically and not, just banged over the head with these changes. So again, it's so important to become the customer and understand how they're perceiving it, because again, it's often how we're doing what we're doing and not what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think, the concept of helping an organization understand, so everyone in the organization understand why looking at things through the customer's lens is so important. And I would argue that everyone in the organization participates in this, even if they don't directly touch the customer. I mean, that's sort of my philosophy, because every person in an organization is important for some reason. You are there for a reason. You have something there that you are an expert in, and you are doing it for the company, not just because they wanted to hire you, but because they needed you. And so even if that task and that role and all of the things that individual does never directly interfaces with the customer, there's downstream effect. What do you guys think?
You have to have the pulse on the customer. And like I said, the customer can be external. So, and it may be internal. In either case, there has to be someone who has a trusted relationship with your external customer who could get honest feedback and bring it back to the organization. And then your internal customers are critical to the success of a transformation. Personally, I used to do surveys, and I had a lot of open for my internal customers, and in it, on all different areas of IT, I had open-ended questions, which I sort of regretted because I literally read every single comment. And people were shocked because it didn't say it was an anonymous survey, but yet people thought it was an anonymous survey. And I would categorize all the responses and then give it to my team, right? If it was an area that was for them, then they would get the feedback. But I would reach out to people and individuals. Some of the feedback could be, I never got this ticket resolved, right? I entered a ticket on the VPN and it never got resolved. And I would write to them and they'd be like, oh my God, like she actually read my comments. Like, I don't think people actually expected me to read them, but I think it's important to seek feedback. And like I said before, let people know that if they're sending you an open-ended comment, somebody's actually reading it. They don't want to know that it went into the abyss. So I think it's important. And then for your external customers as well, seek feedback. But I did reach back. Jessica did mention, I just want to mention this, the whole personality test things, right? There's just an article this weekend in the New York Times on the value of looking beyond the resume. All right. And then the other one was one of those tests. All right. Are you the office couch koala or cubicle cat? And the reason I have it is because I actually took the test. And
what are you, Sheri?
So it was kind of interesting. That test was geared towards like certain of those 2 big 5 personality traits, but it turns out that I was a combination of, and I know there's people on this call who know me, so let me know if you think, is this true? A butterfly. I was neither one. I was a break room butterfly and a corner office creature. So mostly a break room butterfly, but sometimes a corner office creature. And then once I was something else, I was a cubicle cat, maybe, I don't know, or a couch koala, but that was only for one of the questions. So, so anyway, it's out there in the New York Times business section if you want to take it. So very timely to bring that up, Jessica. I literally just did this. So it seems to be a popular, I think what's happening is people are looking beyond the resume, right, to do hires, to see if the personality fits in with the culture, but also reeling it back to something else you said, which was sometimes, you need to look at the person working on your team. And if their skills don't align in a certain area, that doesn't mean that they don't belong in your organization. What it means is like, look at the skills that they have, because I'm sure that they have skills, and see what job within the organization works for them and try to get them there, right? Or use them in your organization where their skills are strongest. But I don't, I strongly believe in that. And it's very important to see where people's strengths lie and then help them shine using those strengths.
And Sheri, to that point, there's been a lot of comments in the chat about skills and competency and abilities. As a practitioner, what type of tools did you use that stand out as exceptional in terms of evaluating those areas? Actual technical skills and competencies.
I don't know that we actually had great tools for that. I know our development and engineering team did. They definitely, when they hired, they had tests that people had to come through and things like that. So we definitely saw it there. In terms of skills and competencies, what we did in IT, because it becomes very challenging for an IT team to keep up with the technologies. There's so many coming in. Even if you are an AWS customer, even within AWS, there's new tools and things that can be learned to improve the DevOps and the efficiencies of your organization. And you might have pockets of expertise within your IT team. So what we tried to do was actually just build a skills matrix, right? Where we knew who was the subject matter expert on a certain tool, right? And it could be anything. It could be your monitoring tools, right? There's so many tools an IT organization supports. And then who was average and who was low. And then we tried to build a matrix so we could cross-train the people so we weren't completely reliant on the one subject matter expert. It's not an easy task, but that's what we did as managers, and my management team did that. They worked with their teams to sort of evaluate their teams, and then help educate people and bring people into the different areas, knowing that it's unrealistic that everybody's going to know everything. It's just impossible. Right? So you have to pick a few things and say, okay, here's my ABC person on this tool, and here's my team for this tool, and then try to build some sort of cross-functional education. It's easier said than done. It definitely takes a big effort.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've talked about skills, and we're going to kind of round out our discussion in just a few minutes, but I want to sort of take us back to motivation and helping our teams really kind of work through change in a way that is productive for them. That digital transformation efforts really rely on the people behind the organization to make them successful. If you have all of the best ideas of your new organization and all of the best technologies that you can bring to the table, if you do not have an organization behind you that is bought in and willing and excited about sort of the new tomorrow, it's just not going to work. I mean, this is sort of a known thing. So what I'm going to just ask to each of you, does anybody have any examples of how you were able to get people motivated, especially those individuals that were perhaps thinking, I've always done it this way, and why should I change? Any thoughts on how you get past that statement? Jeff?
Well, I mean, it's really, going back to, explaining the why. You have to outline the why and tailor it to what's in it for them. And I think one of the big misses that I see over and over and over is, and Sheri touched on it, there's two customers. There's an external and there's internal customers. And we've got to get this change to take place, to get people to buy in, right? We've really got to understand, do a better job of understanding our internal associates and what they need to be bought in and successul. And I really just think the more we can do that and see everything from their vantage point, the better off we're going to be in the actual mission.
I had one young professional say to me that, I want to be viewed at work as not just the worker that I am, but the human that I am. And I think that is, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. And I know that is different for those of us that have been in business for a long time, right? When we came into our working careers, the thinking in the environment was a little bit different. But I think that that's a really balanced way to consider, how can we, to your point, Jeff, create an environment where we are communicating and supporting them in a way that meets their needs where they are, as opposed to the person over here who might need something else. Linda, any last thoughts on, how you've been able to motivate people?
I think it's really going up alongside them, making sure that they're enabled and that they've got the right tools. and that they know you're there to support them. And it's hard to fake that, whether you're on one side or the other side. And it's really, I'm a people person. I'm passionate about leadership and people development. So it's, in tough times, it's harder, obviously, than in good times to do that. But I think that, you've got to try to be the best person you can be. And we all make mistakes, I'm sure, along the way. But authenticity, I've found, is the best way. Be authentic, be open. Don't act like everything's going to be perfect and this is the best decision in the world when it's not. It's made for a reason that perhaps is not very popular. So it's about communication. And when you look at the leaders that you admire the most in the world, or in your personal life or in your business life, it typically comes down to people that are just themselves and the real deal, and really care about the people, and then care about the success.
I agree with that. I think one of my best professional lessons came from a woman who I worked for that embodied that really successful lady, really successful lady, but she had time for everybody. And she genuinely, as you say, Linda, authentically cared about every individual and took the time to relate to those, to all of the people. So I agree.
There's some people that just make you feel like you're the only person that they're talking to at that moment. Yeah, right. That's a real skill. When it's authentic, it's just a beautiful thing.
It is. So I'm going to round us out and do our speed round. So speed round, 30 seconds, your best advice on really how to help create a motivating environment, motivating culture that embraces change. And Sheri, I'm going to start with you and we can just kind of go around from there. So 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. I focused on the digital transformation portion of this. So I have a few points. Here I go. A, technology is always changing, and investments should be made that have a positive impact on employees and customers. Additionally, avoid transformation for technology alone. You need to be supporting a business goal that's a priority. Sometimes the best tool is not the right tool. There's many reasons why you might need to transform, and you need to pull people in behind you. It's important to have employees involved in the decisions and trials of products where possible, and communicate to all on why and how a new product would be implemented. Be sure to have champions in the organization, communicate regularly, seek feedback, respond to feedback, and measure the success of the transformation against the original business objective. If it was supposed to lower the cost, did it lower the cost? Did it improve productivity? It's just critical to measure the success of what you were trying to do and communicate about that as well.
I love that. Measure, what you're doing. Obviously, you don't know where you are if you don't measure yourself.
Can I just say what Sheri said?
I knew that was so good. Tied it up in a Sheri.
I think I took over 30 seconds, so sorry about that.
Okay. Linda, any last?
Sheri, you summed it up so beautifully. And I think that it's all about, you can come up with the greatest idea. First of all, there's a lot of smart people in this world, and you can come up with a great idea. But at the end of the day, it's about adoption, and it's about people embracing it, and people getting to that goal line and accepting where they need to go, and then making the best of that situation. I was reading an article by the gal 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒍, who developed Hint, the water. And she said, it's a great thing. It solved the problem for her, but was it going to solve somebody else's problem? And if they had one bottle and tasted good, what makes them adopt it? What makes them want to continue to use it? It's a people decision. So digital transformation, there's tons of decisions that need to be made for people to adopt that and for it to be successful. So somebody in the comments said at the end of the day, we can be so smart digitally, but it's a people business. So I applaud you, Jessica, for having a conversation like this that wasn't just about the bits and bytes, but about what really makes success happen.
Yeah, great answer. Absolutely. Thank you, Linda. Jeff, any last thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Authenticity. I mirror that comment, relatability, make sure that you're just, we're all humans, right? It's the people part of this process. And, people need to understand that they're being listened to. It was either Sheri or Linda said, make sure that you're following up on their questions. So I always say, make sure you respond to the littlest question that a team member has or an associate has. Follow up, follow through. And then I know this sounds cliche, but be the customer. Sit at their keyboard, put their glasses on, become that customer to understand, and that's internal and external, what you're doing and how it's affecting them. And I think that's, that's my contribution to it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate you all, Linda, Sheri, Jeff, joining me today. You guys know I love this topic, and I couldn't think of three better people to join me and kind of add some expertise on it as well. I hope to the audience you enjoyed our conversation as well. It wasn't just the four of us having fun, and appreciate all your time today. And you all have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining our digital dialogue. Be sure to join our next digital dialogue on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.